It's good to have you with us on this Wednesday right here in the middle of the week. I trust you're doing well. I'd like to just address something that is facing so many people, and we've alluded to it on several occasions, and that is the matter of the uncertainty about the future. I think we're all aware of the fact that our financial stability in our country is definitely shaken, and it's going to take some time for that to recover. And how is God going to work? We don't know in all of this. And then our whole way of life, our whole American structure, much of that is really being troubled at this point, and it's going to be very interesting in the next several years as to how this is all going to play out. And so having that uncertainty brings for many people a sense of insecurity about the years ahead, a fear, an anxiety about it. And on one side, that's understandable, and it ought to motivate us to pray and to be what we ought to be. But on the other side, it can be very detrimental. And God does not want us to live that way. We've already talked about the very familiar verse from Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, that we're not to be careful or anxious for anything, but everything should be brought to the Lord in prayer. But I'd like to go directly to the Lord's challenge in this regard in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 6. And let me just look at verse 25. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, nor yet for what your body, what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment? Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? Wonderful little passage there. In fact, he expands on it in the next few verses. But we need to take that admonition deeply to heart. Now, for us as Americans, the matter of not worrying about what we eat and drink is a pretty revolutionary thought. In other words, we don't live day by day wondering if we're going to eat or not for the most part. Around the world through this pandemic, the countries that have been closed, which are almost all of them, and have been shut down, where people had to stay at home, they literally could not do what needed to be done to eat, to be able to get what they needed for their family. It's been a real crisis, way beyond what we've had here in the United States. And yet you get reports from missionaries on how God provides, what God's doing for the people. And it's one of the amazing things that believers from the most primitive countries to countries like ours always will be taken care of by the Lord. The Lord Jesus told us to pray. That we should pray to the Father that He would give us our daily bread. On a rather regular basis, especially during the summertime when I will be outside to meditate and study, you get fascinated by the birds as they fly around. And I often think of the fact that God in His omniscience has a care for all of His creation, and that He has so worked it that He takes care of the birds of the air. And if He will do that for the birds, those of us made in His image, and then saved by His Son's blood, and have now become the children of God, obviously He's going to take care of us. So I just want to encourage you today, every little need you have, everything that might happen next year, or might happen 10 years from now, the trouble and turmoil that we're seeing in so many sectors that could produce some impact on your life in your future. God knows all about that. He's not thrown by it. And let me just conclude today. He will take care of you. It is a promise. And when God promises something like that, He will do it. He will give you your daily bread. He'll do far more than that. And so we can rest in Him. And I think one of the things that is so important for us in these days, as we analyze what's going on and pray and become determined to reach people, for our own personal lives, let's just rest. Let's rest in His care. Let's don't let any anxiety keep us from being the men and women of God that we ought to be. And honestly, the Spirit of God will just comfort us and encourage us no matter what we hear, no matter what reports are coming out. God will take care of it.